If you've even dipped a toe into the world of dog breeding, you've definitely come across Punnett Squares, which some of you might remember learning about in high school, and others might not. And that's okay, because in this video, I'll give you a quick overview of what Punnett Squares are and how they're used in dog breeding. Simply put, a Punnett Square is a specific way of writing down the genetics of a pair of dogs. And we use this to predict the probability of specific genetic outcomes in a litter. A lot of the time, this is used to predict coat colors and patterns. I'm going to give you an example here using genes at the B locus. So here you can see we have our little empty Punnett square, and the first thing we need is a pair of dogs. So we can see that this dog has 2 recessive brown genes, meaning that the coat will be brown, and this dog has a dominant black gene, which overpowers the recessive gene and makes the dog's coat black, but they're a carrier of the recessive brown gene. So we input these gene pairs into the edges of our Punnett square. And now we're going to use them to fill in the individual squares in our grid by using the rows and the columns. So for example, I'll take this dominant black gene and put a copy of it in each square in its row. And the same goes for the columns. So I'm going to take this recessive brown gene and put a copy of it in each square in this column. And now we can see that this square has already been filled out. It has a complete gene pair. And if we continue with this process for the rest of the squares, we get this. So here is our completed filled in Punnett square. And now we can look at it to make certain predictions. So I can see here that 2 of these 5 squares have these recessive brown pairs, which will create a brown coat. 2 out of 4 squares, that means 50%. What's really important to understand here is that this does not mean that 50% of the litter will be brown. Instead, what it means is that every puppy born into this litter has a 50% chance of being brown. And likewise, each puppy has a 50% chance of being black. Punnett squares don't indicate the ratio of a litter. They indicate the probability of a specific thing happening. It's kind of like how any puppy has a 50% chance of being a boy and a 50% chance of being a girl, but at the end of the day, it's random. We just know what the likelihood is. Similarly, a puppy inherits 1 gene from each parent, and we can use Punnett squares to map out what the possibilities or impossibilities are. But at the end of the day, which genes they inherit are random. Let's look at another example with the D locus. So here we can see that the parents actually have the same gene pairs. They each have a dominant gene, which causes their coat to be normal pigmented and not diluted, but they also each have a recessive gene that can cause a diluted coat if there are 2 of them. So here we can see that 3 of these 4 squares have that dominant normal pigment gene, meaning that there is a 75% chance that a dog in this litter will have a normal pigmented coat. And there is a 25% chance that the dog will have a diluted coat. Okay, so what we can do with Punnett squares, and should, is we can stack them to create more complex possibilities. So here you can see I've mapped out the 4 different color possibilities for this litter. And now we're going to use our B locus and D locus Punnett squares to calculate what the probability is of each of these colors occurring in a litter. Let's look at Isabella to start with. Now, if you don't already know, an Isabella dog is a dog that has a brown coat that has been diluted. I can see here that there is a 50% chance that the coat will be brown, and there is a 25% chance that the coat will be diluted. So what I do now is I multiply them. If I write them out as a decimal, it's 0.5 times 0.25, which will give us 0.125, which written out as a percentage is obviously 12.5%. Okay, so there is a 12.5% chance that a puppy born into this litter will have a lilac or Isabella coat. If we repeat this process with the rest of the colors, we get this. This 37.5% might seem like a really weird number, but it's just by doing what we just did. It's simply this 50% chance that the coat will be black multiplied by this 75% chance that the coat will not be diluted. And that's where we get that number from. I hope that makes sense. To solidify it further, I'm just going to quickly show you one or two more examples in our genetic forecast feature in Dog Breeder Pro. I've mentioned this feature in the past, and it's really helpful for testing out what you've learned, and it's actually really helpful in visualizing Punnett squares. So here you can see I've got a black dog. We can forget about the A locus genes now. What I want you to look at is the K locus. And this dog has 2 dominant black genes, making the coat black, and this dog has 2 recessive brindle genes, making the dog brindle. When I forecast offspring, however, it says that there is a 100% chance that dogs born into this litter will be black. So what about this brindle? Well, if I go to Punnett Squares, I can see here that in every single square of this Punnett square, there will be a dominant black gene. So by looking at this Punnett square, I can tell that every single possibility has a dominant black gene that will overpower the brindle. And that is why, even though this dog is fully visibly brindle, dogs in this litter will never have a brindle coat. So let's make one adjustment. If I go here and I input 1 recessive brindle gene, the dog's coat will still be black. But if I forecast offspring, I can see that now having that brindle coat is actually a possibility. And if you look at the Punnett squares, we can see why. There's a 50% chance that a dog in this litter will have a brindle coat. And that's how Punnett squares work. I really hope you're able to now read them and map out your own. And if you found this video helpful, please pass it along to someone who you think would also benefit. If you haven't already, I highly recommend that you go watch the other 2 videos in this playlist where I explain coat color genetics. I've probably used some terms in this video that might be unfamiliar to you if you haven't already watched those. You can also go to dogbreederpro.com where you can sign up for a 30-day free trial, no credit card required, and then you can have access to this genetic forecast feature that I showed you. It's really helpful for testing out your knowledge and playing around with genes and Punnett squares. Thank you so much for watching, good luck, and bye!